How's it going, everybody? Well, I said in the previous video that when I got this lathe in the garage I was going to do a walk around and show everybody what's on the go with it. And first of all, I'm going to cover why I have it and how I got it. Well, I'm going to cover how I got it first. A buddy of mine went to the previous owner's shop of this lathe. It was sitting out in the parking lot. He asked what it was doing out there and said that he knew a fella that would be interested in it, possibly me. And the owner said, if you know someone that wants it, tell them to come over. So I went over, and the story on it was they bought a new lathe, so they were moving this one outside to make room. The plan was they were going to grease it up, shrink wrap it, and basically put it in storage outside. But in the midst of moving it, they had it fall off the machinery skates, and it's cracked right here. Come on now. Yeah, I suppose you can see that. There's a crack in the casting there, and it's cracked a little bit up in this corner right here. But this is a separate casting than the actual bed of the way, or bed of the lathe, so I'm not worried about it. I can fix it. But this lathe didn't mean much to the owner. Like he said, the only reason why he was keeping it is because it was still good. They were just going to put it in storage. So after that happened, he said it was headed for scrap. So I saved it from the scrap yard. So that's how I got it. Reason why I got it, because I got it for scrap price. So if it turns out to be a piece of junk, I can bring it to the scrap yard and I can get my money back. So it's no real big gamble of money, hopefully. And I had room for it. That was another thing. Well, I didn't really have room for it. I had to make room for it, but it's in here now, so I guess you can say I did have room for it. I don't have any real plans for it in regard to work. I basically just got it for the day that I need it. I don't see it being used a big lot. This garage out here, this is just my hobby. I don't do this for an income or anything like that. If a buddy of mine needs something machined, I'll do it for him, and it's for my own personal projects. But now, with having laid this size, my personal projects and my buddy's projects can get a little more extreme. So if, say, somebody wanted to take their D6C and put 5.9 Cummins in it, Sandy, we can go ahead and do that, which is hopefully something you will see done on this lathe. So that's why I got it, and that's how I got it. The motor, well, all the electrical was a 600 volt 3-phase system. I don't have either one of those in my garage. I got just 220 single phase. And this is not what's going to stay on here, this little 1 horsepower. I just put that on basically to get things spinning, to make sure that the thing wasn't complete garbage, because after it tipped over it hasn't been ran, so I didn't know if something got broke inside the gearbox or what happened. But it didn't get hit very hard, because the only thing really got beat up was this electrical cabinet and the base. But if it fell on its back, I think they broke the base uprighting it again, to be honest with you, because I don't see how that could have got broke from flipping back. And the back of the taper attachment, the paint is scuffed off in the body filler, but that's not a very big casting to go taking the impact of this lathe. That would have broke for sure if it hit hard at all, so I don't think it hit that bad. Not enough to do any damage to the bed or anything like that. Everything moves fine and works good. So the base, I can fix that. That's not a big deal. The electrical, for now, or sort of motor, certainly I should say. I got this 5 horsepower motor here. The original motor, I'm not sure what the horsepower was. For some reason it actually wasn't stamped in the tag. But it was a 2-speed motor, same as what my other lathe had originally. So that was like a 1725 or whatever they are. And I don't know what the low range was, I can't remember. For some, that's not stamped in the motor either. It's a 2-speed motor, but only had the 1-speed stamped in it, and there's no horsepower stamped in it. But I got this motor, that's 5. same as my other lathe, but this RPM is just 3450. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to mount this motor with the shaft pointing this way. I'm going to have a belt set coming up here, and then a jack shaft, and then I'm going to have the original pulley here. And what that'll do is that'll basically gear down this motor to spin the jack shaft the same speed that the original motor used to spin in low range. I hope you can follow along with that. But the reason why I'm using the low range, I'll diagnose playing snow. It's still friggin' snowing here and it's the end of March. But the reason why I want to use only low range and not choose the high range, the chuck over there, I'll get to that now in a second, is 32 inches. The 32-inch chucks I found documentation on says 300 RPM max. If you look here in the speed chart, if I use low range, I'll have from 5.6 all the way up to 355. I think I can run 355 safely and the chuck not explode. I can't see 55 RPM making a difference to that. I hope not anyway. But if I used high range, 280 would be the highest I can use, which is pretty close to 300. But I would like a little bit faster, and 450 I wouldn't be comfortable running 450, so that's why I chose low range for 355. That's the only reason. And that still gives me a good selection of gears. I got 10 full gears using only low range on the motor, so I'm happy with that. The overall length is 15 feet. The bed or the ways are 12. From what I can tell, the swing over the ways here is around 36, I think it was when I measured it. But this is a removable gap bed section. With that out, I'm assuming it's going to be around 40-ish, 42 inches, somewhere around there. And I haven't measured the swing over the cross slide or anything like that. And with the lathe, I got the taper attachment, I showed you that. I got the 32-inch chuck. It's a D18 cam lock system, or size, which is a bit small for this size of truck, honestly, but it's what I got, it's what I'm going to use. So, tailstock is a number 5 Morse taper. I got the steady rest. I don't have the clamp plate for the steady rest or the stud, so that's something I'm going to have to make up, but that's just a quick little project. I've been cleaning away at it slowly. I got from there down, I didn't bother with the feet on the bottom. I didn't get that far yet, but the ways are in very good shape. Down on this end, last say 4 feet, there's a little bit of tarnish on them where the carriage never was down there, but the rest of the ways look great. The gap section, as you've seen up here where the carriage cannot reach because it'll strike the truck first, there's tarnish down there, but like I said, it can't reach down there anyway. And there's a score here for the last inch. I guess something got in this void and got dragged back, but that's not a big deal. I went over it with a stone. There's no high spots, so if there's no highs, you're good to go. Look at it in full snow. So yeah, 32-inch chuck, and where I'm running a 220 motor, I wasn't going to scrap this cabinet. The way this lathe was wired, it had 600 coming in, and there's 120 volts for all your control power for all the switches and everything like that, and then there's a 28 volt circuit or 31 volt circuit that ran the clutch in the carriage. And this clutch here, from what I can tell, that used to disengage the clutch, or that chuck, sorry. You hit this button and that would knock the spindle into neutral. As you can see, I'm missing a cam lock. I got to make one of them. That's going to be another project. But from what I can gather from that, you press this button, it energizes that clutch thing there, and it knocks your spindle into neutral so you can roll the clutch around to do whatever you got to do. Because to get this gearbox into neutral is a bit of screwing around. It's got a sleeve on the bottom, and then you got your ranges up top there. So that's the only thing I can figure out what that's for. And then there's another clutch in here, basically identical. And what that used to do, normally the feed shaft was disconnected from the carriage gears, and your motor here is always connected. So that would be for your rapid travels, for moving everything around. And then I think you would hit this button and that would engage the clutch. So your carriage would then be ran off of your feed screw, and basically all that does is couples the feed screw to the electric motor. Like I said, the electric motor is always coupled to the carriage. That was on the 28 volt system. That motor was on the 600 volt, so I'm not going to be able to use that. And basically the only electrical I'm going to be running on this lathe is the forward and reverse switch here for the spindle. So I had to bypass that clutch. Right now it's locked out, so it's always engaged. And like I said, I wasn't going to scrap this electrical cabinet before. I did keep the original motor just in case down the road, if I ever do move into a shop that got 600 volts. I'm only young yet, so God only knows what's going to happen down the road. But whatever's going on in here, it's either set up extremely weird from the factory, or more than likely the case is someone was in here messing around. There's no contactors to reverse the motor. It's only got forward. And these three main contactors here are only set up for the high and low on the motor. Normally, that's low, that's high. As of right now, that does nothing. When you, as you can see, that's the wires for your 115 volt there. There's no power on this right now, so don't gotta worry about that. But there's your feed out of this transformer for 115 for all the control. I put power to it. When you hit the start button for the motor, it engages the contacts for high range. So the motor would start in high range or high speed. And then if you came over here and selected forward or reverse, didn't matter which one, it used to knock the contacts over into low range. And then the only way to stop the spindle is to come over here and hit the stop button. And then if you left this in forward or reverse and tried to start it, because of the safeties and all that, it wouldn't engage any of the contactors. You had to walk over and put that back into neutral. Which, none of that is correct. It's complicated as hell. It took me a while to figure that out, what the frig they had going on, but that's what it's doing. For me to put it back the way it was supposed to be would be a pain in the ass, because there's no schematic in this panel anywhere. So with that being the way it is, in order for me to set it up the way I would want it set up, which is properly, I'd have to come in here and figure it all out. And usually with something as complicated as this, it's almost easier sometimes just to start from scratch. So I think I'm going to gut this panel, use these contactors to run my single phase motor. So I got forward and reverse. And I probably won't gut everything out. I'll just unhook the wires and hook up what I need. But who knows, I might gut the wires out just to make it clean in here. So that's what I'm doing with the electrical. And what else? Oh, the options on the lathe. It's got metric threads, module, which I'm assuming is for doing worm gears in a right angle gearbox or a worm gearbox. That's the only thing I can figure that's for. Whitworth is threads. This diametral pitch, I'm assuming that is your standard or imperial threads, because the numbering coincides with that. You got 4.5 and 11 for, say, like a 5/8 bolt, and 18, 16, all that. And then circular pitch, this one's all in fractions. I'm not sure what that's for. When I first looked at it and didn't look at the numbers, I was thinking circular pitch was for doing threads on bolts, and diametral pitch was for doing standard worm gears, because diametral pitch is normally what you would call the tooth size or tooth profile on a standard or imperial gear, and module is the term used for metric gears. But you don't, like, 9/16 is not a thread pitch. It's 9/16 bolts, but there's multiple thread pitches for it. Same thing with 5/8 and whatever. So that has to be for your threads. That I have no idea. I'm assuming that's for doing worm gears. If not, I don't have a clue what that's for. And Whitworth is a thread, and then metric is a thread, and that's your feeds. And then the rest of this, that's all just for your quick change for your gearbox. And the nice thing with this lathe, there's no change gears. Everything is in the feed box. My other lathe it's primarily a metric lathe. All the dials are in metric. The lead screw is metric. So any metric threads, I can just use quick change gearbox. But to do standards, depending on what gear or what thread I want to cut, I might have to change out some change gears. So this one's nice. I don't have to do that because guaranteed the change gears would be missing. They were missing for that lathe. I've been machining the gears I need as I need them. So I'm glad that's the way this is, even though I can't see me doing a big lot of threading on this lathe. Like I said, I just got it for work holding capacity. I can put flywheels, bell housings, whatever I need in here. The length, I don't honestly think I'll need it this long, but who knows? Someday something might come through my door, or I might need to machine a piece of pipe or anything. So I got it if I need it. If I never needs it, well, so be it. And moving down here, the power feeds. This lathe has power feeds on everything. Even the compound is power feed. And I'm going to go ahead and show you that. Turn on the motor. There she is, spinning around, and we're in 35 RPM. Supposed to be, but it's not going to be that because that pulley is way smaller than that one. That belt is definitely slipping. So, who knows what the RPM is. You can see the feed screws chugging right along. And if you want forward and reverse, or that's feeding towards the chuck, feeding away. And then up and down is a 2-for-1 kind of deal. You throw this knob down, that's your cross slide out, cross slide in. And if you throw this one down, right, that's another thing. You can run the two of these at the same time. I don't know why you would want to, but see the cross slides going along. You come up here and flick this. Compound feeds in. Compound feeds out. And of course, you can stop this one, flick that off. And now you get just your compound. I'm not sure why they went through the expense and trouble of putting a forward and reverse here. Really, that could just been an engage, and you can use that to reverse it. So I'm not sure what the reason for that was. And this lathe would have been great for production. There's a limit switch here and your adjustment rail here. That's the limit switch in there for your cross slide, and it's got selectable stops. And how that would work, all these switches are on that 115 volt control circuit, and then I'm assuming if something come along, hit one of them switches, it would disconnect the power to that clutch I was talking about earlier, and it would stop. And the carriage had the same thing. There's these different stops along here. There's one there and one there, and they're at different heights. And the switch for that one is right here, and this lever here would get 3 detents. So for production work, this lathe would have been really nice to operate. It'll never see production work as long as I got it, unless I got to make 2 or 3 of a part for my own uses. That's an oiling selector. Right now it's oiling, I guess, the cross slide and the compound. And when you turn it this way, it oils everything in the carriage. And it must send oil to the ways, because I haven't oiled these ways yet. I've just been running it, and there's steadily oil pouring out, and there's steady oil pouring out on the cross slide. So I guess it's self-oiling on the ways. Like, oh, this is puddling right out there, and I have not put a drop of oil on these ways. So that's nice. And I'll turn that off now. So yeah, this lathe I'm assuming when it was new it costed a good $1, because options like this cost money. Options always cost money. So this thing has a lot of cool features on it. It even has a heater in the gearbox. 115 volt heater. There's a switch there, but it's just momentary, so I don't know how you turn it on or off. I haven't got into it. I'm not hooking it up. My garage is heated. I don't need heating in the lathe. And actually on up. And if you want the lead screw, pull that out. I don't know if you heard that, but that little 1 horsepower motor with slipping belt doesn't like when you engage that. I'll disengage it and you'll probably hear it pick up. I don't know if you can hear that on camera or not, but you have to take my word for it. It does pick up. But yeah, overall, I'm happy with it. I still got to clean up behind here. And like I was saying earlier about the damage, the cover is only fiberglass, and it's got a little crack in it there, that's it. And these steel inserts that are fiberglassed in, that one's broke, the other two are fine. That's the only damage that's on that gearbox cover, or drivetrain cover for the feed gears. So I think that's about it. I told you what I'm doing with the motor, I told you the electrical, I explained everything that I know about the gearbox and the carriage. I told you how I got it, I told you what I'm doing with it, which is, I don't know what I'm doing with it. I basically only got it because I thought it would look cool as hell when you walk in my garage, and it does look cool as hell, so hopefully I can actually make it practical. But anyways guys, that's long enough now for this video. If you got any questions or wants to say anything, comment sections below. Oh, the brand name of the lathe, it's SZIM, Sierra Zulu India Mike. However you pronounce it, I don't know if it's Sim or Sizim or Zim, or I don't know. It's a Hungarian lathe, so however they talk in Hungary, that's how you say it. That's all I know about it. As I figure out more stuff and get more work done on it, I'll post more videos. So if you want to see this thing in action, like the videos, subscribe, and have a good one, everyone.